We are live and number 100. Hello, everyone, and welcome to This Week in Hospitality Digital Marketing, show number 100. That is right. That is not a made-up number. That is 100 consecutive weeks, every week that we have gone live with this show, This Week in Hospitality Digital Marketing. And I would not be able to do this without my cohorts in crime who, well, they haven't joined me yet, but they will. I promise you, they will. They can't keep up away from a good conversation. I'm setting up some of the setups for. We go live on Facebook every week. We go live on Periscope every week, which is Twitter, and we go live on YouTube every week, which is where we push this show up to. And we're just making sure that we are all good to go as we turn everything else on. So yes, show number 100. We're coming up on our 2-year in August, where we started this whole thing 2 years ago. We've gone through multiple platforms. We started originally with Blabcasts, which was the first platform that actually allowed for multiple people to be on the screen at the same time. And then from there, they went over and changed their beta, and we jumped over to another platform called Huzza, H-U-Z-Z-A, that was doing very well, but they also got bought out and changed it to a different model that was not publicly driven. And in that entire process, I had been using a platform called Webinar Jam, which allowed for video broadcasting, but it didn't allow for multi-screen. And just in time before Huzza went over and changed its platform, Webinar Jam announced that they were doing multi-screen platform capabilities. So we, in fact, were able to go to that platform, which is the one that we're on right now, which broadcasts us live to YouTube, which I'm just making sure all of our platforms are up and about, which we are, which is all good news. And we're just making sure that audio, I've had a heck of a time with audio. We use Restream as a method of multi-broadcasting, and it has given me ghosts in the machine, so to speak. Platform usage that has not been all that good so far. We'll get some audio in there for first, and then let's do a refresh on this screen, which it seems to be stuck on sitting tight. So we'll see if that works out well as we change over some of our audio functionalities to all of this. We try to keep ghosts away from it. But anyway, so we have a few things that we wanted to carry over from last week's show. Of course, now with Hi-Tech and ROC at its conclusion last week, we had a wonderful discussion from Mr. Robert Cole, who was able to attend, and Mr. Stuart Butler from Fuel Travel, that what were some of the things to see at Hi-Tech and ROC. They apparently had a record attendance, which was outstanding. It was the first time I hadn't been to Hi-Tech or ROC or speaking at either one of them for 14 years. I didn't realize I had such a long road history with them that I was there every week. But I was indeed. I'm still messing with some of the other platforms here. Our audio is still giving us some headaches here a little bit. We'll see if that makes a difference for us. There it is. Now we have audio on that side. So anyway, some of the things we like to talk about today. Before my other host decide, Mr. Robert Cole is joining us. I thought this was going to be a solo act. I thought I would have show number 100 to myself, the way things were going. But no, Mr. Robert Cole, one of my earliest co-hosts actually, was early to join shortly after we started the show. Mr. Robert.
Happy birthday, Lauren. You look great for 100.
Thank you so much.
You don't look a day over 85, I got to tell you.
You're such a generous soul. Although I was looking at the camera. I have this camera in front of me, and for the life of me in the past, I don't know, 2 months, I haven't been able to get it to work. It'll come on and test well, and then as soon as I go live, it flips over to the laptop camera, which I have to say is not my good side. Although I've looked and I've tried every side, and I haven't found my good side yet.
Wait, can you move about 4 feet to the left?
Here we go. Here we go. Oh, there it is. Oh! That's the good side.
That's right.
Oh, there we go. All right, we're back up to live on Periscope. I'm hoping the audio is. I hopefully have fixed the audio ghosting sounds that I've had in Facebook from times before, but we'll see. You figure after 100 shows, you think I'd get it right about now, but this is actually a late arrival technical problem that we had. Hey, thank you so much for the awesome list of other suggested topics. I had a few. I did want to keep it a little loose when what we were going to talk about because I didn't know where we would carry all this up. I'm not trying to do a best av or anything, but
I thought we were going to do the hotel industry year by year for the last 100 years, just 1917 to 2017.
I wanted to go back to 1895. I think there was a large transition that happened in the late 1890s that should not get overlooked so quickly.
I think if we really want to cover it, then like 1865, I think was Thomas Cook in the UK, and that was kind of good, for people touring around and things. So yeah.
Although I have to say that more isn't always better. We get asked from time to time to go over and write for things and so forth. And I wrote for an article that they only required 3,000 words, 3 sessions, and I overindulged and I wrote 8,000
per installment, right?
Cumulatively, I mean, it was 8,000 compared to 3,000. And I thought, wow, they're going to really like the fact there's so much more that they can pick and choose what they want. And it's like, no, not really. They just want 3,000.
Right. So because it's got to fit in a certain. Yeah. That's the old newspaper thing. No, we've got so many column inches. We've got to fill 12 column inches, and that's all. So.
That's all we got. Yep. Yeah. There was 2 things carried over from last week that I thought that we didn't get to spend enough time with. Stuart wanted to catch one, so maybe we'll wait see if Stuart's going to join us. But
Stuart's not joining us. He said, "Well, maybe he will, but I don't think he is." Us? No, he sent a note saying he's, I'll read his note. At the risk of shattering everyone's hopes and dreams, which certainly he has already done, I will be unable to participate in today's festivities.
Wow.
Blaming it on clients, putting clients above the 100th show.
What are clients doing getting in the way of all this stuff? I don't understand.
I know. It's sacrifice that takes, that makes the show.
Hey, Miss Holly.
Hello.
Yay. Now, who the hell needs Stuart and Ed? And we've got Holly.
Holly now. We don't need no Stuart or Ed.
I'm only coming, though, for a few minutes to say happy 100th.
Yay, thank you so very much.
We've already said Lauren looks great for 100, doesn't he?
You do. You really do.
Because I don't look a day over 85.
Living in Arizona, when I saw your email that said we've hit the triple digits, I assumed you were talking about weather, but apparently 100 should.
That's right.
Oh, you've been hitting the triple digits. How long have you guys been in 100-degree temperatures now?
How long have we been over 110 every day?
Wow.
At least 2 weeks. It's hot.
Yeah. Is it now to the point where the pool's more like a bathtub?
That happened last night. I was so hot. I was like, oh, let's just go for a swim. And I got in and it was hot. I mean, it was not warm. It was hot.
Yeah. Somebody made a comment that people would make money now if they know how to refrigerate the water in the pool rather than have a pool heater.
It exists.
Some people
I've already priced it. $3,000.
Very expensive. Yeah.
What?
And that's just to install it. Then the energy used to cool is not so good.
What's the evaporation like? I mean, is it like you're constantly putting water in the pool?
I'm so dumb. Somebody asked me that when I first moved here, and I'm like, I don't think I have any because I never have to refill the pool.
Oh,
I have a thing that automatically does it.
Tim, welcome
to on your own here.
This week in swimming pool
care.
It's called survival in Arizona.
No kidding. I like that color, Mr. Tim. That's a good-looking color.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Nice looking.
Thank you very much.
Holly has
for 8 years, and I remember when my kids were small, they would say, "Can we go outside and swim?" And we'd have to tell them, "No, it's too hot."
The pool.
Like that's when you know it's too warm. You can't actually go out to the pool because it's far too hot outside.
We had asked Holly about that, considering that it was so warm that it finally turned into a bathtub. But,
yesterday.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. You'll notice everything's blank behind me. This is we're taking off with the trailer load tomorrow morning down to Florida. House goes on the market. Actually, it's on the market as of today, and it's all over the weekend going to get shown. So we'll know what our life's going to be like in a week when we drive back. So we'll see what happens.
The house in Dallas or the house in Florida?
House in Dallas. Yeah.
Apparently, somebody moved to Dallas and ruined the neighborhood.
There's been a lot of parties since we announced we were leaving, but we haven't been invited any, and I just don't know why. Yeah, they're pretty.
I'm leaving for Florida this afternoon.
Where are you going to?
The National Speakers Association conference.
Hey. Wow.
Are you speaking?
I am an attendee. I'm working on my certified speaking professional certification,
Oh, wow.
Oh,
and that requires attendance at least one of the major events each year. So
I didn't even know there was such a thing. That
oh,
there's
don't give Holly ideas. Now
Oh,
she's
no.
like,
I'm very well aware of it. I don't want to do it.
Yeah, it's a nice certification. It works well. It's like any of these things. It's a differentiator, right? When you're talking to meeting planners, when you're talking to people who might hire you to speak, that's really all it boils down to. It's a great program. I like the National Speakers Association a lot. Good people, good program that they have this year. So it should be a lot of fun. But I'm doing something I haven't done in a long time, which is going to a conference as an attendee.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of fun to do every once in a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. So
It is a unique beast in that more often than not you're usually going because you're having to speak. Holly,
Right.
since you're here with a limited time, was there anything that you saw out of the list of fun stuff? Or
Robert's hot off the press.
And
Morgan,
I'll be right back. Excuse me for 1 second. I'll be right back.
Yep.
The loyalty analysis.
Here, I'll go over and there's no link to it, but there's a whole lot of text to it. I can't put that in the chat thing. But Mr. Roberts, since you were so
sorry.
generous in sharing that,
oh wait,
The one that I picked.
Which one did you pick?
The recent research that was just released about the OTAs and the brand's loyalty.
Yes.
Stanley.
Oh, okay. Morgan Stanley. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Brian Nowak and those fine folks at Morgan Stanley. So there are actually a few guys who really, I think, focus really well on these. One is Brian, who certainly covers a lot of the internet stuff. They also have a hospitality analyst. But then the guys from Susquehanna do a very good job. They're doing a very good focus, as does Cleveland. So three good research teams there. But Brian, Morgan Stanley folks, actually there's a whole gaggle of them, just released the lodging and internet. Are hotels better off from brands' direct booking push? And the summary is that they believe that branded hotels are paying on average about 20 basis points more for distribution than they were 18 months ago. However,
because of the direct booking push, or because of rising prices from OTAs?
Well, that's just the overall net. So they say through increased loyalty members and contribution, a slowing shift to the OTAs, one can argue this could be a cost worth paying depending on the quality of the new members. So that's the thing. That's kind of the net. So they're basically saying you're trying to book direct, you're spending more to book direct. So booking direct isn't saving them money,
But
right?
isn't it worth it in the long run?
Yeah, the question is it really going to worth it? So so it's an interesting approach.
First I have a dumb question. What's BPS?
Those are basis points. So a basis point is what, a tenth of a point, right?
A hundredth of a point.
Or a hundredth of a point. So it's when you're looking at like a percentage. Yeah. So when you're looking at a percentage change, you can see how much that percentage changed.
Got it.
Right. So
I had to look it up too because I hadn't seen it in so long. I'm like, what the heck is BPS?
It's used a lot by financial guys and asset managers.
Yeah, I had to look it up. I'm like, what?
Yeah, when you're comparing rates of change, sort of thing. When
Right.
you're comparing those percentages, you can see the growth rate is doing whatever. So distribution costs as a percentage are up. What did they say? 20 basis.
So
yeah,
0.2 of 1%.
0.2%. Yeah.
Right.
So, but again, that's over 18 months. So that's a fairly short period. Not huge, but it certainly hasn't dropped anything. So it was interesting. They said the brand company's ability to monetize loyalty members across the coverage rose 17% in 2016, up from 14% growth. Right. So that's a 300 basis point change. So that's a lot more loyalty members.
But also, the next sentence, though, the members made up an average of 40% of hotel brands' occupancy in 2016. up from
Yeah.
38% in 15. So
So 2 points.
Right. Yeah, and that's a pretty big growth. But again, I think you have to look at what's the quality of those members, because all of a sudden
Right.
these guys are signing up. The big question they had for loyalty is if they're coming on to be, quote, loyal just to get the discount, that's no good, because they'll just join all the programs and then they'll just, pick and choose and get the 10% off, and nothing really changes, right? Except they've added the cost of having them in the loyalty program and giving points and doing all that sort of stuff. So that's not a good scenario. Now, if people really do like them and are in their loyalty program and stick with them, that's a good thing.
Right.
So,
Because here's the argument in favor of the brands, right? On this is, for years they have underinvested in acquiring new customers, right? So instead it became very commoditized and very transactional. A guest could show up because they found you on Expedia or TripAdvisor or Booking.com or maybe Brand.com. But in all likelihood, they found you on one of the bigger guys. They came and stayed with you. And then the next time they went looking for a reservation, did they go back to your website, or did they go back to what had worked for them the last time? Right? So the argument is you're paying a little bit more upfront to acquire customers who they booked directly with you. The next time they're going to book, they're going to come back and book with you. I'll tell you where I like that argument, where I think that argument has merit. The Calibri Labs data, they have this really weird piece of data that I think people overlook because it's really obvious, right? It had to do with pogo sticking behavior. So people who started on OTAs versus people who started on Brand.com. Mm-hmm. And the basic takeaway was, if they start, and I'm not going to get the numbers exactly right because I don't remember them, but the basic takeaway was, if they start on the OTA, they were incredibly likely to book on the OTA. And if they started on Brand.com, the odds that they were going to book direct went up dramatically, right? Mm-hmm. Which makes sense if you think about it. Because if they start on the OTA, there's a very real possibility they never come to you in the first place. So that's just a lost opportunity entirely. So if you can pay a little bit more to get people to come to your website, the odds are more of those people are going to book directly with you, because the ones who don't come to your website clearly are never going to book directly with you. Right. And I think that's a thing people sometimes overlook, because it's so obvious as to be,
right.
You know what I mean? So is it worth it to get those people to come direct and, in fact, start to develop some genuine loyalty as opposed to just paying them points to stay with you? Maybe.
Well, and I argue with the, quote, genuine loyalty, because I think it's genuine gamification, right? So,
sure.
Because I think that you have this whole spectrum of people. I think the vast majority of those people who are pumping through the 40% of the occupancy, they are corporate travelers.
Sure.
They are, booking through whatever platform, or calling the hotel direct, or it's an assistant, coming through. They're booking it, and they've got the credit card, and they're all in because they are accumulating a bunch of points for their next vacation. Right? And that is what they're doing, but it's very often somebody else's money. Right. That's a big difference, because then you have the people who are out there spending their own money. Well, in some cases, they may say, okay, that's all right. We're doing it. We're going to buy it with the Starwood credit card because we're a Starwood preferred guest, and we'll do this because we're pretty close. And that's okay. In that case, the programs, kind of work. But I think there are a lot of people who look at it and go, gee, I'm spending my own money. Whatever, the Sheraton is $250 a night, and let me just go look on an OTA, and what's this thing at $180? It's got the same hotel class, and it's got a higher TripAdvisor rating or something like that, and it's located nearby. I don't think it's worth spending the additional whatever. And I just made up that difference. Sure. But at some point, there's a difference there where you go, it's not worth the points. I should just say, if that's what they're interested in, right? It's like, what's the value of that program membership versus the immediate, wait, I'm staying for 4 nights. Why should I pay an extra $50 a night just for the points? That for some people, that doesn't make sense. For other people, maybe that's a no-brainer because that's what's going to tip them over to get get the next level of the loyalty tier or whatever when that really works. So
to take that in reverse, then you're saying from a brand perspective, the value proposition, inverting that to the independent hoteliers, does that mean that it's a reaffirmation that there's a needed component that their reliance on the OTAs because they can't exercise this leveraged option of membership reward values? Is it okay?
Yeah, I would think so. Here's the thing: I'm not with the torches and pitchforks crowd when it comes to OTAs. You know, I don't think they're always the nicest people. I don't think they're always the best partner. You know, I made the joke about Marissa Mayer once upon a time. Excuse me, Melissa Mayer, who's the head of partnerships for Expedia, and she wrote this piece. It's a blog post I wrote a while ago that I'm not going to link to, but you can find it.
Come on.
No. Give me your cards.
Turned over a new leaf.
No.
It's the 100th show. How could you not?
Oh, that's a fair point. Okay, I'll put the link up in a second. But no, the point was I made the joke in there that, Melissa's title is, Senior Vice President of Partnerships or something like that. And when you looked at the things they were doing, I was like, there's a little bit of Inigo Montoya in this, that you keep using that word. I do not think it means what you think it means. Right?
Inconceivable.
Partnerships, right? So they're not always the best partners. At the same time, they have immense reach, and they can be incredibly valuable at reaching customers who you can't reach on your own. And the mistake that I think too many hotels make when we talk about the OTAs is, they look at it as all or none, as opposed to where are the places that they can help me, that if I wanted to be in that market, right? If I wanted to reach that guest, it would cost me a fortune. I have hotels who get some business from Europe, on in-language sites, on OTAs and the like, because they're not going to put up their own, site in French. They're not going to put up their own site in German. It would make no sense. It would never pay for itself. Right. But an OTA is a fantastic place to get that business. It's an absolutely wonderful place to get that business.
But again,
and is cheap relative to what it would take them to get that business any other way.
It's inexpensive, and even more importantly, it's low risk.
Yeah.
And the third factor, which nobody talks about, is it doesn't hit the marketing budget. So it just happens.
But it does. I
believe there should be a different accuracy of recording for this.
Yeah, I totally agree.
I completely agree.
But it doesn't. It's just out there, and you say.
But it's not like it's free because it doesn't hit the marketing.
Oh
budget.
no!
That's the problem.
the owners certainly feel it in a very, very big way, and the brands, certainly feel it. In a very big way too. And that's where the war is. It's really the value of that brand and driving people. I mean, I think on an independent hotel basis, right? Individual property basis. Again, a lot of brands don't even allow properties to have their own website, right?
Which I have always thought is a big mistake.
Huge mistake. I think from an SEO basis, they are
from an SEO basis,
idiots.
Local search basis, all the links back to the brand from all your hotel websites.
Sean Paley was here.
Right.
He'd be absolutely contrarian to this.
Oh, but he's wrong.
That's okay.
Sean, I like Sean, but he's flat out wrong on it.
He's got to be wrong on this.
We have to get Sean on here because he made a pretty compelling case to me one time about why Marriott hotels potentially, or a segment of Marriott hotels should not have.
No, it's control.
I used to sell them for a living.
For Marriott, it is control. Just flat out. They have always been. Here's how they do it. Here's the message. It's like that. But and Marriott is not a current client, but is a client not working on anything now. But they don't have a great website. They could do much better. What they're getting better, but they aren't really tied into how great those individual hotels are. They have some historic ones. What is it? I think one in St. Louis is like one of the original Statler properties, right?
Yeah.
There's no mention of it. It's got a incredible history, but it doesn't fit into the template, right? Of what because there isn't a history section for the courtyard out.
And what they should do, if you're not going to give people their own website, I mean, sorry, I'm going to get super nerdy for a second. Don't forget, a website is an artificial construct, right? Yeah. A website is a set of content that happens to be sitting on a server somewhere that happens to have a URL that points to that. Right. That domain could be hosted anywhere. The content could be hosted anywhere. So if you're not going to let them have their own website, you should at least be the person who hosts the content that allows them to differentiate themselves, have the history tab for people who need it, have the whatever tab for people who need it, allow them to have their own domain that points back to that content. Absolutely. And if you control the template, you control the frame, right? Rock on. Yeah. That's completely fine.
Right.
That is absolutely fine. But it is an immense missed opportunity. Immense missed opportunity.
If you do great jobs on weddings, or you do great jobs like being closest to the football game, the stadium, you provide, free drinks in your bar, and you drive people back and forth, like whatever that stuff, that is outrageously valuable, and that gets missed out by all these. And the bottom line is look at TripAdvisor, okay? I was looking out at Google, because one of the other tabs I have, I'll just mention it very quickly. Trivago's market cap has now exceeded TripAdvisor's, which is a pretty big deal, because TripAdvisor has fallen there just over $5 billion. Trivago, who just went public it didn't really hit their goals, $5.6 billion, right? So that's kind of a big deal. But you go into Google search, go into an anonymous, incognito mode, and search, and go look at something like Paris hotels. And yes, you'll see a little stack of ads at the top with Trivago bidding in the top or second slot generally. But then you'll have above now the Google pack of the Google hotel ads, you'll see TripAdvisor.
Yeah.
And it's there. And if you put best hotels in Paris, okay, you won't see any hotel chains. It'll all be editorial sites, but TripAdvisor, number one, because the way they've organized the site, they've got one page per property.
I've said this on the show before. My friend Bill Hunt wrote the book Search Engine Marketing Inc. with my friend Mike Moran. A great book, fantastic book. I highly recommend it. Bill's son works for TripAdvisor doing SEO, right?
Yep.
Bill's son's job, his entire job, is hotels near.
Yep.
That's all he does. That's his entire gig. He gets bonus based on that.
Absolutely.
Right?
He's probably one of the most valuable employees in terms of generating.
Absolutely.
If he got paid, he should get,
he gets stock and stuff. He's getting paid.
A hundredth of a cent for every person who incrementally comes to TripAdvisor because of his effort.
and if you're Marriott with what do they have these days? 5,000 hotels, 10,000 hotels. I don't know the number, right?
I think it's like 5 or 6,000.
I always get the number mixed up because Wyndham, where I worked,
5,770
always had more, but we were way smaller in terms of room count because they were 75 room properties, right? I mean, so I always get the thing. I know there are 1 million rooms at Marriott, but if they had those 5,000 hotels, with somebody at each of them who was responsible for creating content about the local area, think about the amount of content that they would have.
Well, and that goes to a point to defend Sean.
Anybody else to come up with.
Right. To defend Sean's strongest point, and to what Holly was pointing out too, is that the limited service properties are properties that don't have the ability to do anything for themselves. The standardization and conformity that brand provides is solid. But to this end, I would say the argument that he can never defend is allow those who have the resources or would give the resources to allow their ability to do it themselves, and then take care of those who don't have those same resources. He can't defend that because they're taking something away, to Tim's point, that they're not giving back a replacement value for.
Well, they're homogenizing something away that only hurts them.
Yeah.
I mean, this isn't even, about. I used to do this, right? And I will tell you, I used to run this for 7,000 hotels, right? And we had a bunch of requirements. We had a couple of preferred vendors that you had to use to build your website. Mm-hmm. And we worked with them on templates that were pre-approved. And yeah, if somebody had if somebody carried dual flagged properties and they put the Ramada logo next to the Holiday Inn Express logo, we would ding them for that, right? Mm-hmm. But we required they use one of these preferred vendors. We required that they used our booking engine. The reservations had to come back to us, right? Mm-hmm. So we had standards, and they weren't required to have their own website by any stretch. But, the Knights Inns didn't have their own websites. They had property pages on knightsinn.com that had the content we could, squeeze out of them, which was like pulling teeth.
Because they're buying for a billboard on each side of the the town.
Absolutely. but we had some great properties. The Days Hotel, which admittedly was a bad brand extension, but the Days Hotel in Washington, D.C., that guy was fantastic. He had a great website and had all kinds of great content about things in D.C. that then linked back to us for reservations.
Which is great. Yeah.
And I'll tell you the dirty little secret. We didn't care how much they stuck to the standards for a couple of reasons. Because one, this was 10 years ago. The web was smaller. Mm-hmm. Two, we didn't have the resources to police the 4,000 websites or whatever that they were. And three, realistically, in that era, there was no way we were going to pull a flag if somebody broke the rules, right? Mm-hmm. Now, maybe that would change now, but you create standards, you create guardrails, you say, this is what you can do, this is what you can't do. They were getting, most of the property websites were getting a couple of hundred visits a month, maybe a couple of thousand visits a month if they were particularly good. We were getting 250,000 visits a day. We didn't have, we didn't care. But if they drove some additional reservations, it was great.
And if they have all those links on all those pages they have linking back to the parent, that's tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of links, which are relevant. You work on the keyword, what's the link text, where do they land in terms of landing page, and you can do great stuff. But you hit a very important point again to rip on the hotel brands is they don't have the resources to manage it because that's not a moneymaker. They don't have any way to charge for that.
That's right.
So it's a cost, and that hurts their profitability. So even though it may be better for the cumulative whole of the brand to do that, it winds up being better for the properties.
There's also mitigation,
brand, and they aren't going to do that.
Right. There's also mitigation that doesn't get discussed, and that is brand saturation within market. Marriott has to be even to everybody. And there have been, and I have witnessed where Marriott has taken away validation of one property in a market to give it to another property in market for SEO value because they want to mitigate who can actually, not everybody can show for the best downtown hotel, Marriott in XYZ city, but it is decided and defined according to brand, value proposition in market, and distribution of trigger points to each one of the properties. Because when some of these hotels were built around the same parking lot, they all can't show up for the same things equally. So they have to divide how each shows up corresponding to their brand type. And so they can't do that.
Yeah, but if you leave it to the properties, you're clean.
Well, that's the thing. But they don't. But
I'm not making them number one. They're making them number one.
Right. No, I'm saying that's one of the hidden secrets of the brand stuff.
Yeah,
is that they're mitigating this so that they don't have those problems.
Holly, you seem very.
It's not better for the consumers if you left it up to the hotels because the better marketers are going to end up with the customers, not necessarily the better hotels. And so, from a brand standpoint,
I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying, and you may be right. Maybe
one in 100 shows.
No. Stop.
I'm kidding.
All the time.
No, but there are a lot of good hotels who don't know how to market. There are very few bad hotels who do. Right? Usually the people who are good at marketing are also good at running the hotel. in my experience. You know, you don't run into a lot of properties that they got the marketing cold, but they run the property like a pile of crap. I'm not saying it never happens. Yeah. I'm saying that's not the norm.
Well, you can where it's a strategy, right? Somewhere around Disney or something like that, where they're like, we're the closest to the main gate, whatever.
I got to mute for 1 second. Sorry, my allergies are killing me today. Sorry.
I think it's easier to market.
Oh, I wish I had like a honking. I wish I had a horn sound effect I could play.
My apologies. Sorry. That was classic. Say what you said one more time, Holly.
Just now, I said I think it's easier to market than it is to run a good hotel. But
oh yeah, God, yeah. That's why I'm a marketer.
So that's
why. And why I don't know.
But I also I'd be dealing with sometimes with hotels that their quality scores don't match the marketing efforts. That's a limited resource too. Eventually, you will catch up with you, no matter how good you are. It's too expensive to advertise a crappy product.
That's right.
And so, it may run for a bit, but the idea of going back to the brand's interest to all this stuff too is that what Robert said, there's no monetization to this, but there is an equation of equality that they have to distribute between all their locations within a particular market, and they can't do that if they allow the properties to self-regulate. They have to say, you have these 5 keywords, and I'm not making up. These are your 5 keywords that you can optimize for, and these are your 5 keywords you can optimize for. You can be the parking lot, and you can be the pool, that kind of thing.
But if you get out of that business altogether and you just give them a template, you're clean. Yeah. Because you don't want to. You don't forget, I've actually been sued for this. Not I personally, but Wyndham has been sued for restraint of trade for things like that. Yeah. If I tell you can't do stuff, right? Mm-hmm. So it's just easier to say, I'm going to say, here's what the guardrails are. And as long as you're within those guardrails, go optimize for whatever keywords.
It's like sports. Whoever has the most money wins. You can make a dream team if you want to spend the money for it.
Mm-hmm. And that's also part of the problem, though, because then you have your independent website and then you want to promote your independent website. And then you're competing for keywords
with the brand.
I disagree.
Redundancy.
Yeah, I hear you. But this is where the brands, we did a ton of this at Leading, not so much at Wyndham, because most of our properties weren't doing paid search at Wyndham back in the day. There were certainly some, but it wasn't the norm. At Leading, this was a very real situation, right? Mm-hmm. What if the property is competing with the chain for the same keywords? They're buying the wrong keywords, right? They're buying the wrong keywords across the board. You should be buying the stuff that complements. We actually used to have meetings regularly with our hotels at Leading about, here's the keywords we're buying currently. This is what's working. This is what isn't working. What keywords are you buying? The only thing we wouldn't do, and this was a fight with some properties, was they didn't like it when we bought their brand. Right. And we said, here's the thing. Do you like it when Expedia does? If we can't stop Expedia from doing it, you're only hurting yourself by stopping us from doing it, because we had more budget. We had more way to go. We could compete with Expedia head to head much better than the individual property could.
Right.
So what we did try to do was some stuff like, let's make sure we get our day parting straight. So we're going to buy this part of the month. You buy that part of the month, so that we're not going head to head. Work in collaboration. But you should be buying the things that they're not going to buy. Like Robert said, you're the closest one to a specific attraction. You're, the one with the best restaurant. You're the things that are long tail that the chain can never get into because there's too many of them. That's absolutely what you should be doing, because then it becomes very complementary and not competitive.
Yeah.
I hate what's happened in the industry, and maybe it's because I work for 2 large hotel companies, but I do think hotel owners should be asking of flags, of chains, what are you doing for me? That's an entirely fair, entirely valid question.
And a lot of chains don't want to have that conversation.
Right.
But
it's not a great answer sometimes.
Well, no, that's true. That's true. Actually, there was a property who will remain nameless during my time at Leading. I hated having that conversation because they were a better hotel than we could market. They just were. Yeah. Because they were so good at it, they had more resources based on selling them than we could possibly ever give to them.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, we did a pretty good job for most of the properties. The problem that I have is that the relationship has become very adversarial on both sides. You know, particularly with people like Melissa Mayer out there stirring the pot and saying, what are the brands doing for you? Lately, compared to what we, your good friends at Expedia, are doing for you? And I'm like, you know.
In some cases, in fairness to Expedia, in some cases, they are doing more.
Sure.
Right?
No, that's fair.
That's fair. Now, do they have the hotel's best interests at heart? No, they've got Expedia's best interests at heart.
And don't forget, there's a lot of things,
and
there's
so
a
do the
lot
brands.
of things. There's a lot of the things the brands can do for you that Expedia will never do for you, right? If you need to go get financing for your property, right? A brand will back you on that in many, many, many cases. Expedia
and some of the banks will require that. Some of the banks will require that.
Yeah,
you've got to have the flag, or you won't get there.
Exactly. So I mean, you know, comparing the brand to an Expedia is comparing apples and, you know, kumquats, right? I mean, they're just completely different things.
Oh wait, which is the kumquat?
But from a marketing standpoint, I feel terrible. I'm loving this conversation, but I've got to drop off. I'm here 10 minutes longer than I was supposed to be. I just came to say happy 100.
Thank you, Holly. Thank you. Well, you made it possible. Are you kidding? It's not just me; it's us, all of us.
That's right.
This is long since stopped being my show. After episode 2, I think it was.
People only tune in to see if Holly's going to be on the show.
Yeah,
I
right.
know. Actually, Holly, I ain't there. I ain't jolly. If I ain't Holly,
I'll tell you what. When you're not here, the numbers spike in the first minute and then drop instantly.
That's funny.
And then I start talking and they drop further.
It's because they need somebody to ask the questions like, what does BPS mean? Goodbye, you guys. Have a great weekend.
Have a great weekend.
Thank you. I love when Holly can join us.
We're having this conversation, though. I just had this conversation last night with a student in my Rutgers class who works for a franchised restaurant company who will remain nameless. And, you know, I don't want to say we did everything perfect in my time at Wyndham. For sure, we didn't. It was also earlier days on some of this stuff, but we did a lot really well. And one of the things we did, partly because we didn't have the resources and we didn't have the way to police it, but we did say, you should own your local market. Go for it. Right? And link back to us for the reservation.
Yeah.
Right? Because most of them couldn't get a booking engine that was worth a damn, and you had to do all the integration. Right? So you were just better off, you know, all that kind of stuff. Same thing with leading. We wanted the reservation to come through us, ideally. We provided a booking engine to the hotels who wanted it. We had about 100 of our 500 hotels, 450 hotels used our booking engine. And across the board, they all did better. It was absolutely true.
Yep.
And some of it was you got out of it what you put into it. Right? They did better because we worked more in partnership instead of either, you know, absentee landlord, where it was just kind of like, oh yeah, those leading guys, and same on us. Oh, that hotel in wherever, and in some cases because it wasn't adversarial, but we worked together, we complemented one another, and those hotels tended to do a lot better.
I can augment some of our conversation a little bit in practical, something that just walked through in conversation as well, where I was talking about the asset value of what a hotel had compared to not having, not possessing, not owning. Because people get kind of lectured, oh, well, I have this hotel, I'm doing business and so forth. And I'd say, well, you know, what kind of database do you have? You know, where's your database? Well, as an independent hotel, I'd say, oh, we have 500,000 names. I said, great, go look at your names. And immediately find out that 300,000 plus of those were not bogus, but were the temporary email addresses from your OTAs. So you lost, you know, there's no data there. How are you going to reach out to certain clientele and so forth? Well, you don't have a database to refer to, so you're going to have to do advertisement. What are you advertising and how are you advertising? Well, that's dollars being spent. How are you going to isolate out and target those people? What information do you have about them? We don't. More money to be spent. I said, so at the end of the day, if we took the sign off the front of the building, you wouldn't, if you didn't work out in partnerships with people, have any means and methodology other than the abstract person driving by going, oh, look, that kind of looks like a hotel. Let's go stay. You would actually do any business. So there's a valiant need for OTAs. But if you're down and out for business, you go to the OTA and say, I need business. You know,
Right.
just as much to a brand. If your brand is there, you're saying, "Hey, I need business, drive business to me," but they're going to have to do it and sharing it with your siblings.
Right.
They're going to have to make sure that they're not going to be different to you than they are to everybody else.
Right.
So
and that's an excellent point though, because when you've got 100, if you've got a down market because that city's, you know, whatever, overbuilt, whatever's happened, you know, economic collapse, and you're sitting there with 100 properties, all of those properties are going, feed me. I really need help. And they don't have enough breadth to go attract that business. Whereas a group like Expedia, it's every man for himself sort of thing. And you go, well, you got to give me this and you got to do that. And in some cases, Expedia may go, I can't help you because you're out in a, you know, you're beyond the suburbs. You're on a highway.
Quaternary market.
Yeah. And you know what? And so I think a lot of the market managers will say, we can't really help. We can do this much for you. We can't do what you want. We can get you that far, but we can't do the whole thing. And they won't really, even though it may be in the best interest, spend more, do, you know, banner ads, buy that. They won't do that because there's no ROI for it. I think most of them try to be pretty responsible with that.
And that's a place where an OTA actually can make a stronger argument than a brand in all seriousness. Because you don't pay them if they don't bring any business.
Right.
Whereas
like Robert said, risk factor is lower. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Right. You know, I want to be very balanced about this in that, you know, I don't think everybody should carry a flag. I think there's a lot of merit. You know me, I mostly work with independent hotels. I'm in big favor of independent hotels. I just think, again, when we talk about what do you expect the chain to do for you versus what you expect Expedia to do for you, if you compare them on the same playing field, you're not looking at them for the value that they provide. And that's true in either case.
Right.
Well, you know, there's an interesting segue because you bring that up. Had a couple points. The Hotel Del Coronado in San Diego. Incredible property is becoming a Curio property for Hilton.
Oh, interesting.
Yep.
I know.
And so you look at it and go, so what is Curio bringing to the Hotel Del? Now, you could say, what's Hilton bringing overall? Or I think if you peel back the onion a little bit, you go, oh, who owns the Hotel Del? Blackstone. Blackstone owns 21% of Hilton. Along with actually another big chunk, 25%. Yeah, 25% is actually owned by HNA out of China.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And HNA actually owns Radisson, too. So it's really getting interesting in terms of who's owning what stuff.
I'm just surprised by that because the Del is such, I mean, anybody that's been there,
iconic property.
It is one of those places that it is in and of itself its own entity. I mean, the history of that place, the location of that place, everything about that place is its own unique ID. And you're going to put some Curio? What the? I mean, seriously?
Well, at Curio, you probably aren't going. My guess is you probably aren't going to see the name Curio.
No, can't.
No,
I don't see that. The infrastructure-wise, it'll help. I mean, the only thing I could ever say about the Del was, as much as it's historical, I wish the lobby was bigger and brighter. That's it. Other than that, that's the only thing I've ever say about
that was when it was. That's how they built the hotel lobby. You gotta go look at
what they had to do back in the time. Exactly.
Fairmont in San Francisco, right?
Yeah.
Sort of thing. You got these iconic hotels. That's how they built them.
Yep. I was going to make another point on something and I totally blanked out once you started talking about the Del. I was like, damn it, there was something else I wanted to pop up what we were talking about. Before you came on, Tim, we were making a joke about how far back we were going to discuss hotel history today. And I wanted to kick back to the 1895s and then Robert up me and said, no, 1865. But there is something that is different in contest about our independent versus branded. Hotel independency was completely up until the 40s, 50s, at the 50s at the latest, was based on complete repeat business. It was the transference of I enjoyed a place that I went to. My neighbors knew about it. My neighbors then went, because then you had regionalities. Canadians went to Hollywood Beach, Florida, and you go to the Poconos. You know, that was nexuses of communities that shared the experiences with their friends and they went. That was the way an independent could exist. Brands, to the point of homogeneity and consistency, started with Holiday Inns and Howard Johnson's to show that no matter where you went, there was an expectation of a particular product.
Right. That's right.
Now, this is the greatest time for an independent hotel to exist because it's not an equal playing field, but there is a lot of opportunities for independent hotels to equally play.
That's
and
exactly
be in
right.
spaces. And that can't get forgotten, that out of all these things that Brain can do and supportive, there is limitations as to what they're asking for as well. And there's a really hard evaluation for properties that we have to look at and say to themselves, you know what, in this environment, in this market, I think I'm better off going on my own because I have much more control over my existence than having to be fed with everybody else in the family in the market. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah. I mean, you have to look at, again, what do you need from the marketplace, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of hotel services. Do you need a booking engine? Well, you can get that anywhere, right? Do you need marketing support? Well, you can buy that anywhere. Do you need a loyalty program? Okay, now that's a rewards program. Okay, that's something that's a little harder and might mean that you're better off with a chain. Do you need access to financing? Oh, well, that's a very different reality, right? Do you need volume purchasing? Oh, that's a very different reality.
Right.
If the answer to those questions are no, well, then you start going, boy, this looks a lot like an independent. You know what I mean? So it's
or now a soft brand, right?
Or,
because you've got a lower fee level.
That's right.
Basically, where you can tie in, you've got more capability to do your own website and do all that stuff. Right. And so that's why soft brands are working really, really well for these.
By the way, most of the independents that I work with, not all, but most of the independent properties I work with are affiliated with a preferred, with a Historic Hotels of America, which is a preferred label, but with a leading, because there are things that they get from those relationships that make a lot of sense.
Sure. Small luxury overlay chateau.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You go through the whole list.
Absolutely.
I have a question.
Now, one thing on loyalty members we're talking about Colloquy said, now this is 2015. U.S. consumers hold 3.3 billion memberships in customer loyalty programs. That was a 26% increase over 2013.
I use this stat all the time, by the way.
Now I don't know what the stat is for 2017, but that is a massive. So people are playing the game, but that doesn't necessarily mean this is where I'm putting all my chips on red over here to go.
Well, I'm going to commit the cardinal sin of marketing, and I'm going to be a focus group of one. Okay. This is my experience. I travel a lot. I'll do 70,000 miles this year, probably. Right. I mostly fly United. Right.
Because you fly out of Newark.
Because I fly out of Newark. I almost always fly United. Right. Mm-hmm. But I'm a member of American Airlines. I'm a member of JetBlue. I'm a member of Delta, because when I fly them, I may as well get the points for it.
Absolutely.
And the same is true for my hotel stays. I am a member of every hotel loyalty program that exists out there because I may as well get paid for it for those times where the only game in town is, insert a brand here where I don't typically stay.
Right.
So, and I suspect that's true, when we talk about 3.3 billion loyalty memberships out there, that's 10 for every single person in the country, every man, woman, and child in the country. Right.
Not household. I don't know how many households there are, but that's
it's like 100 million households or something like that. But nonetheless, that's 10 for every single individual in the country. And I suspect most of those folks are doing what I'm doing. They don't really have 10, they really have 30, because they're, the folks who are traveling a lot. Because when they stay at that place that happens to be off the beaten path and it just happens to be a flag they don't typically fly, and they say, do you want to join our program? They're going to go, sure, may as well. I may as well get the points in case the next time I got to stay at one of these, and then wasted opportunity.
Right. And now you can save, and I always hate these up to 10%. That drives me crazy, because it just set the customer up for disappointment. Because it's going to be 2 or 3 is kind of the number that's working right now. So, and sometimes it is.
We're giving away one thing out of a million people that sign up for it. Yes, there's that.
Now there are some interesting promotions going on. I mean, Wyndham, and I've been staying, very honestly, again, focus group of one. I have been staying more with Wyndhams because There's a very nice Wingate that just opened. It's brand new in Lubbock, Texas. My daughter goes to school at Texas Tech. I'm there several times a year, either moving or moving out, a couple parents' weekend, things like that. So I'm there maybe six times, 6, 7, maybe 8 times a year. And I tend to be doing it. But if they're doing 20% off if you stay 2 days, and it's like, well, why not? I can suddenly get this brand new hotel for $80.
Right.
It's like, it's the best by far. That value just kills it. So all of a sudden, I'm in gold, things like that. And again, Wyndham's program was pretty controversial because you can stay at Nights Inns and things like that. And if you stay enough, you can convert that to a stay at a Wyndham flagged property, sort of thing down there. So again, they're playing an interesting game where, I'm not sure how great that is for the Wyndham flagged properties to kind of be that aspirational goal. But I think they made the economics work for the program to.
I can tell you from the stuff I knew in my time there, and this is way, way out of date. I don't know that this is still true, but typically that wasn't a problem. We did a lot of redemptions. The number one redemption that I remember years ago, and I think I can say this statute of limitations has long since passed. We would give things like Chili's gift cards. The redemptions were for very low value stuff. The Wyndham properties were really aspirational for the road warriors, for the folks who stayed at Ramadas and Days Inns and things like that, and generally better properties out of the set. The Nights Inn folks, even the Super 8 folks, we had a lot of Super 8 Nights Inn. A lot of their customers were truckers. Were long haul truckers and things like that. They were redeeming for a gift card. They were redeeming for a Target gift card, a Walmart gift card, a Chili's gift card.
Very, very important aspect of this is what is the value of that currency in these loyalty, because it is gamification. Not some of it's loyalty. In some cases, it may be true loyalty. They love it and that's fine, and they go do it. But in the gamification, what do you do to improve the value of that currency? What do you do to improve the liquidity of that currency? And how do you do it cost effectively from an operational basis? Because if you use a group like points.com, it's horrible. You wind up, you think OTAs with they're taking 50, they're taking 20% out of it just to do it's like the currency conversion booth at the airport. It's like, you took how much?
What?
Is that legal? I only want $50. Why are there $8 in fees? That seems high.
But I honestly don't remember that.
The exchange rate is horrible too. I mean, the exchange rate is bad too. That's the other thing. So all of a sudden you go, great, I've got these points. It's not enough to use it for a stay. They're about to expire. They're going to take, what can I get? Oh, I can get a magazine subscription. Or something like that, which is just, it's like punishment for, it's hostile for the guy. Like, wait, I did all this stuff. I played the game. I didn't play it I didn't win the game, but there's no trophy for participation.
So I have a question we're trying to squeeze in here. It just not from a hotelier's point of view, but from a CVB or destination market or just community market. Do you feel that brand infusion versus non-brand infusion that has inverted still is preferable? That brand is brought in before independent hotel brought in? How do you think cities and so forth, when they see businesses coming in front of them saying, hey, I want to build a hotel here, that they're saying, well, is it going to be branded? Because if it's not branded, we're probably less likely to be interested than if it was branded. Is that... do you think there's any shifting?
For tax abatements and things like that. I don't know. It depends on the developer.
True.
I think
and
a lot
also
of times
the destination. I know those are variables that obviously a high market area.
Yeah, but I think a lot of times they'll look at the developer and they'll say the developer may say, yeah, and we've got a deal. We work exclusively, not exclusively, but we work predominantly with Hilton or something like that. Now, again, they're looking at the site and they're going, yeah, this one may work for a Hilton, or maybe they aren't going to do it. But a lot of these developers now work with a lot of different, a lot of different groups, or the management companies or whatever. They put together how do we stack this? How do we stack this thing up?
Well, and I think there's also the question of what story is the market trying to tell about the market, right? So to use Charleston as an example, I don't know this. I don't have an in with the CVB. I've not talked to the CVB. But Charleston is noted for being a quaint, charming city, sort of a European flavored city. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you that most of the new rooms coming into market are independent. There are a fair number of flagged properties too, but as a general rule, the ratio is probably 50-50, which is pretty high for a market of that size, right? For the number of rooms they're bringing.
Yeah. Well, you get markets like that where they don't want a McDonald's and things like that, right?
Right.
It's not necessarily the same. And
Stuart's back on the show too, because with Myrtle's one of those examples of, holy crap, there's brand saturation in that market. I mean, but then again, you have a nice, interesting group of independents. But the reason why I ask is like Fort Myers down in Florida, they've been trying for the longest time to get a downtown hotel adjacent to their conference center. Mm-hmm. And when they finally announced who the latest person was that they were going to attempt this with, there was a sense of relief that it was a brand-related hotel. And I'm sitting there going, why? I mean, yes, I understand why logistically, but why would that be a bread of preference? And I'm thinking it's because they think they're going to get more national recognition because a Hilton's sitting there or a Marriott's going to sit there compared to them.
I hate to say this. So I'm fiercely pro-independent. I think I've made that abundantly clear over 100 episodes, and knowing you guys for a long time. I can see that. I think when you're trying to sell the market, if you're trying to tell somebody who's looking at the market for the first time that we got this great convention center and it's attached to, I'm Bob's Hotel, that's going to be a tougher sell than saying, and it's connected to a Marriott or it's connected to a Hilton. People at least go, oh. So on a convention center adjacent property, that makes a certain degree of sense to me.
Yeah, I can see that.
That an independent, I think, it makes for a tougher sell. Just broadly, when you're trying to sell to meeting planners who don't know the first thing about your market.
Right.
I can see that one.
One's just been announced here in beautiful Irving, Texas, next to their convention center. It's a Westin.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. And that makes a Westin or a W? Actually, it's a W. Hang on, I'll check. Oh, see, and isn't that bad? That's horrible. Because I'm confused.
Well,
here
that's
in
Star
the industry.
Wars problem. Yeah.
I think your point got a little lost there, Robert. I'm not sure, but
but no. Actually, the point still stands because it doesn't matter. We're cool with either. They're both fine.
No, but it is
in a convention space specifically. That makes a degree of sense to me.
Sure.
I'm looking it up now.
we had a couple carryovers from last week. One was under the inspiration that Stuart wanted to make sure this didn't get to be a lost item, and that was the iPhone turned 10. We didn't really get a chance much last week to chat a little bit about it, and he was very adamant that it was a worthy enough conversation to bring up. Well, what does that mean, and what can we expect? And it did. Ironically, it did land on a time when I'm writing some nostalgic content as to where we are now. Some of the new updates to the certification program that we're all working on and stuff for HSMAI, and it brought up kind of this nostalgia to think that 10 years ago, there was no such thing as an app.
Yeah.
To think that 10 years ago, we looked at phones as being phones. Right. And if they did something else, that was cool, but it's still my phone. Now it's complete inversion. I mean, I don't even try calling.
You could still browse the web and things like that. There, I had
BlackBerry was still king. I mean, the Razr phone was still the major production item back then.
Oh yeah.
Oh no, I had a great Nokia. I had a great Nokia, which was shaped like a flip phone, right? That's what, it had the screen at the top and then a little number pad at the bottom. But then when you opened it up and turned it sideways, it had keyboard. The keyboards went out to the side. And you could type with it. Was great. Now, and you could get text, you could browse the internet and that sort of thing. It was fantastic. Now, maybe
I used to surf
modern,
the web on my
modern websites, not so good. Yeah.
Yeah. And you got to think back to that time that when the phone first came out, the first consensus was this is garbage. It's a flat screen. I can't tell there's no buttons. I can't I got fat fingers. Now, BlackBerry is all but disappeared. The phones have turned into this homogeneous similarity of group of interactions and so forth, with just moderate levels of differences to it. But the App Store has its was it not its billionth, but its 400 millionth app or something that just got developed. And then that kind of ties to now look at what Facebook. Facebook has 2 billion monthly users, 2 freaking billion monthly users. I mean,
yeah.
Holy unbelievable. And that's mostly social. It's 100 after all. We can do that.
But if I can bring this full circle just for a second, I mean, this gets back to what we were talking about before about why properties should have their own website. Mm-hmm. With the rise of mobile, with the rise of people searching for things that are near where they are, Google autocomplete, mm-hmm. The growth in searches near me, right? So with the phrase near me on it, either explicitly typed, usually because somebody tapped on the autocomplete, or because it's implicit because their location is known.
Right.
That search volume is growing 40% per year.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. So, what it's done is it's made, all marketing is local. All marketing is where you are right now. That's incredibly valuable.
So two loopholes for all brand people that listen to our show. One, get heavy into social so you can create your own content base, because if you're not able to do it on your own websites, you've maxed out your modules allowed or your segments provided or anything else that you can do on your brand platform. Social is still a lateral shift in content development that you can do. And the other is, and this has also gone under the radar brand, which I'm sure they'll make your allotments for in their contract soon, is a concierge site. You are still allowed to create a support portal for those people interacting with your property for content related to their engagement with you. It doesn't fall under the website rules. It falls under that you're offering a near proximity site, which if flipped correctly with the right sniffer, meaning when you're within range or not range, you can have it as an outward bound site as well, as long as you're not using your brand name on your hotel URL. So small little loopholes for those brand folks watching.
You're saying for those hotels who are branded. Right? I take no particular pride or pleasure in going along with that one way or the other. Work in partnership. Don't just look for loopholes. Work in partnership, folks. If you're going to be part of the brand, be part of the brand.
Is that the word that you think it means, but you don't think it means?
Well, no. In this case, Look, if your relationship with your flag is, how do I get around these guys? Maybe you're with the wrong flag.
But they're all kind of like that. They all have
that's not true. That's
what Lauren does.
Yeah,
Lauren
I know.
Bends the rules.
And I'm not saying you should never bend the rules. I'm not saying law. It's a question of look at the overall relationship. Look at, are you getting value out of it? And if every time you have to interact with the brand, it's painful. If every time you have to interact with the brand, you have to come up with some workaround, maybe it's not the right brand.
But you say like every time and so forth. No, these are things that
every time. I mean, it's never ever. It's never always, and it's what I mean.
Right.
But if most of the time.
Most of the time would be a fair statement. If you're most of the time, but there are sometimes there are limitations with brands. And this speaks well to everybody that works in the brands, any brand, and so forth. There are those that are compliant with malleability of interpretation. That's what I mean. If they see you're capable of doing something and it is beneficial to your business and to them because of how well you do your business, certain malleability. Now, again, it goes back to, sometimes less is more. If they don't know as much, they have less to complain about. Sometimes there's a, beg for permission or forgiveness rather than permission kind of mentality.
Yeah, sure.
There are sometimes you can get this done. With that said, none of these things should be attempted if you haven't maximized everything that's available by your brand. If you're not using your brand to its fullest capacity, then you do not touch this stuff. This is not a replacement of, this is an augmentation beyond what you're able to get from your brand.
Well, and I would argue on the OTA side, you should be doing the same thing.
Yes.
And again, I'm not saying that you should be like with a brand, you shouldn't be paying for every single option and thing that you don't need. But the basics, you should do everything they do. Same with the OTA. Make sure you've got the best photography and the descriptions are up to, and everything. You have to present yourself the best way.
Yes.
Because again, you don't have control over these things.
And that's when you find the brand will be most supportive of you too. If they really realize that you have exercised every leveraged opportunity with them that is to your benefit, exactly right, then they are going to be a little bit more on the understanding side. And to your point, Tim, that doesn't mean you're adversarial to your brand. Yeah. It means that you have exceeded the availability from them, that you're going to do things that they just have to accept as an improvement to business. Yeah,
that's right. That's right. That's absolutely right.
Now, but the interesting part,
you do the things first.
But the interesting part is, and again, not to slam on the brands, because I'm not really anti-brand. I'm just kind of, I focus on some of their behaviors, right? They're still good. They're still good companies. They're still
good within him. I just feel it.
but then you get the downside with, okay, so you've done everything. You've been a good member and done everything right the same way. Now things turn down. Yeah. Who's going to help you? Or is it you've been good with the OTA, or you can, and you start getting this argument like, oh my God, the OTA might be able to do more for me than the brand. And that's the part these brands have to be very, very careful with. And that's the battle that's really happening. I mean, it's for survival, because if the brands can't be as good for a hotel as an, and yes, we can help you with financing and we can help you with purchasing and things like that. You just have to look at how certain groups get disrupted. I mean, Google Google now is in the news business using bots and a variety of editors to basically have artificially intelligent, using artificial intelligence to generate news. That is not good for the news business, which is already, just having, struggling along. So, you open yourself, if you're making big fees, I mean, if you're, again, Hilton's getting almost 15% from a Hilton Garden Inn or a Hampton Inn. It's like 14.9% of room revenue. By God, you've got to own it, especially if Booking.com's sitting there, taking 15% on a just delivered basis. That's 15% of everything, regardless of where it came from or why, if they were even aware of the brand. And that value proposition, puts kind of a, an onus that you better produce a hell of a lot more for me being an owner.
For sure. Yeah. Yes. By the way, could not agree more. I actually have said many, many times, I'm going to say something. I've never said this out loud to an audience before. But brands generally are screwed. Because your brand often is only as good as your last couple of TripAdvisor reviews, right? And you can get many of the services that brands provide from the marketplace at a better cost. So if you're a certain caliber of property, if you're a certain place in the marketplace, you can do just fine as an independent hotel, or as a soft branded hotel, right? Notice the fact that the brands have been introducing soft brands like crazy. Yes. Hilton just introduced their second soft brand. Wyndham just introduced their first. Somebody else just introduced one. They clearly recognize that the way that they deliver services to hotel owners must change and is changing. The question is, will it change fast enough?
And for brands across all the spectrum, brands normally provide some sort of premium in terms of, I'm willing to pay more for that brand. And in some cases, people do. I mean, it used to be like if you traveled to Paris, there you go. Absolutely. Now you're talking loyalty.
Now you're talking
true
loyalty.
Brand. Right. That is true loyalty.
You want to see my tattoo?
But you get that higher, from a consumer perspective. Yes, I'm willing to pay more to stay with that because of that brand. From the hotelier's perspective, the fees are higher because you're part of that. Because again, you look at like a Best Western, and Best Western's been doing some pretty good stuff. Their fees in many cases are half what it is of a major brand, or the other major brand. So you start factoring that into the equation. But what's happening when you look at Amazon, though, they are crushing brands.
Oh,
Right?
yeah.
We had that discussion weeks
Well,
ago.
I mean, just look at what we did again. Going back to some of our earlier conversation about the fact that brands were originally started for consistency of product awareness. I mean,
Right.
at the beginning of the program, they've
Pure
evolved
consistency.
into what they're offering. Yes, you know, at McDonald's, the reason McDonald's was so
McDonald's.
successful. Boom, boom, boom. You got the same burger in the same plate. You know, regardless
In a
whether
clean restroom.
in a clean
Yep.
restroom. Yes,
That's literally what McDonald's was all about.
Yep.
You got
Yep.
the exact same burger, everything, everywhere you went, and you had a clean
Right.
restroom.
but now with
Do
our
it.
information. Yeah, and now with our information age, that uniqueness is now the coveted thing, not this homogeny about it. So yes, I agree with you completely, Tim. Brands in the long run need to adapt themselves to the uniqueness that they offer, not the homogenistic value that they offer.
That's right.
But I got to pause and give you a genuine and sincere compliment to you. I had a great, wonderful post conversation with Stuart on last week's show, and we were talking about certain things. But I have to compliment you and Robert as well, because you're in the middle of that conversation. When we talked about Google last week and the EU's decision with it, I am in persistent amazement of why I so much enjoy this show. It's not 100 times doing it just because of whatever. We don't do anything. We don't build business off of this per se. We don't do sponsorships. But that kind of conversation we had last week was genuinely informative, educational for me. I had not looked at horizontal growth versus vertical growth until you started talking about it. I didn't look at the real ramifications of what that meant. I looked at the superficial ramifications of what I thought it meant. To that end, to both of you, I can only compliment the fact that when I was talking to Stuart at the end of the show, he says his team listens to our shows and is scared to freaking death of us. And I'm like, well, not me, because I'm usually just the comic relief. But
Is it because of the way we look?
Conversation. Yeah. I was like, saying, what? But no, we get down into these heady conversations because our show is not about where like they take, you know, this is topic 1, topic 2, topic 3. We do this, then we can it, we stop it, we start the next one. Ours will go to a conclusion or a point or get to a discovered point. Like in my mind, Google last week, that if I just introduced it as a topic piece as it was, like, boom, hey, in the news, EU, blah, 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 I would have walked away with it still thinking what I had thought when I walked into that conversation. Instead, I walked away with it with a completely different appreciation for that conversation, thanks in every part to what you guys and how you talk about this and realizing this. And if anybody out of the shows that we have done, yes, they're long. Yes, we go off on different tangents. Yes, we talk about crazy stuff. But there is some amazing insights that, to Stuart's point of his team, they look at it and they're intimidated for the fact that they don't think, in the knowledge that they have, they could be a participant in the conversation. I'm like, well, that's silly. Of course they could be. But in their mind, they think, wow, you guys brought it past the level of superficial knowledge, past the level of common knowledge, into the realm of what the hell were they talking about knowledge? You know what I mean?
Into the realm of exhaustion or exasperation, which is when you stop talking about something.
Well, Lauren, if I can sum that up briefly, it's basically with all this horse shit around, there's got to be a pony in here someplace.
There's got to be a pony in somewhere. Well, that was a full-blooded stallion last week.
So, unfortunately, that's very flattering. Thank you. And unfortunately, I do have to run because planes don't wait.
That's what he does.
Where are you going? Where are you going?
Normally waits for the
Orlando.
compliment, then darts.
Oh, that's right.
That's it.
Yeah, you're in Florida. So Orlando. Okay, so you're going to go say hi to Ed while you're there?
I'm not. Ed's on vacation this week. I don't know if I outed him, but he's not in the office this week.
No. He was ducked out for it. He's on the cruise or something, wasn't he? He was going to do the family cruise thing. Yeah.
So if I will be there Monday and Tuesday still. So if we get a chance, maybe I'll hook up with him, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
So, but I do need to get to the airport. So, gents, always a pleasure.
Tim,
looking forward to the next 100.
Next 100. Yeah, well, we're coming up on the 2-year next month and so forth. But Tim, if people want to find out more about you, what it is that you do, where besides all things internet can they go? TimPeter.com
basically is the hub for everything, though I am TC Peter on Twitter.
I think that needs to be the tagline for TimPeter.com, the hub for everything.
I meant everything me.
Watch out, Google.
No. Oh, please. Yeah, right.
Google Home. We found it doesn't have to be Alexa or Siri. It can be Tim. Hey, Tim.
Well, since we're talking anniversaries, I'm actually it's 18 years my website has been around.
Woo!
Wow.
So
damn,
that's a long
1999.
That is impressive. That is
1999.
impressive.
Yeah, there's a line in Groundhog Day that I think speaks to, you know, what you were just talking about with Stewart and his team and everything. That I think Robert has the same thing. Lauren, I think you have the same thing. You know, where he's talking to Andy McDowell, and she says, "Wait, you're telling me you're God?" And he says, "I'm not the God, a God." And he said, and he goes, "Maybe God doesn't know everything. Maybe he's just been around so long, he's seen it all before."
Maybe that's it.
I would never claim that I've seen it all by any stretch, but
after 18 years
for a while,
that's an interesting stat. I'm going back to the
Wayback Machine.
First time archive.org, 7:36 p.m. on October 13th, 1999. Yeah, it was live. There wasn't a whole lot there.
oh yeah, 99.
Hey, most websites back then didn't have a whole lot there.
Right. Yeah, 99 didn't have much.
I made a website for the when I was GM at the time of the Melbourne Hilton, and my backdrop of that whole website was a tile of the logo because I didn't have any size. There was no sizing in the world, so it was multi-tiled logo, and the background was my backdrop of my first page on that website in 1998. Probably still there. No.
so nonetheless, have a great weekend, fellas. I will look forward to talking with you next week.
Very
Tim,
good.
Thank you always for the
weekend.
time and privilege. Thank you.
Hey, could we talk about one other little interesting thing that I was kind of kicking around, but I wasn't really paying attention to what you guys were talking about, but it seemed interesting. No, I'm just I went out and just put in, when we were talking about, you know, kind of the SEO thing, and I did an interesting little test, which I just put in the word hotel, right? Just once logged in and then once anonymously, right? In incognito mode. And it's interesting. So I put in, you know, hotel, and it goes, okay, I've got hotels.com at the ad, Expedia, Kayak, and then interestingly, Extended Stay America for Dallas, DFW Airport North. So they're buying just that general keyword, which I would normally not recommend a client to do that. I don't know. Maybe they get covered, but it was interesting. So the 3-pack in the hotel price ads was Days Inn Irving, Crossroads Hotel and Suites, which quite honestly, I don't even know where that is. $49 a night. And then Homewood Suites by Hilton, right? So I kind of know where that one is, and that's, you know, that got the better rating of them, 139, but, you know, 6340. So Google seems to be looking at, and, you know, they have a nice little map of, here are all these dollar signs around, right? You can see the prices of where these things are, which I think is a pretty powerful, if you just, you know, I look at this now as tying into voice, right? You just say hotel, right? You know, hey Google, hotel, and it will wind up saying something.
It might be part of also, if they didn't do their keyword strategy right, if they just did a dynamic keyword as the only header, and not it's adjacent to another word, then it might have come up for that. You could put maybe hotels in there and do the same thing.
Oh yeah, well yeah, but if you do and you get different lists for hotel versus hotels now too, right? Hotel tends to be more specific property. Hotels skew more out to, but hotels.com came up number 1. Okay, that's fine. TripAdvisor number 2, of course, and their titles are so good. The 10 best hotels in Dallas, Texas, with prices from $57. I mean, that is just, what else do you want to know? Wow. Yeah. Now, I don't know if one of those 10 best is a price from $57. That's maybe a little questionable. But then, interestingly, Dallas hotels, Omni Dallas Hotel, which is interesting. Hotel in Dallas, the W Dallas Victory, which is downtown a little bit. They got a couple weird ones of a tablet hotel in Sicily. Hotel Palazzo Cavalieri somehow is ranking, which I don't know if that's a mistake or these guys are like the ultimate SEO hackers or something. I don't know, but they've got they're the only ones with little pictures next to it. So for some reason, some hotel in Sicily, and I have not been searching for hotels in Sicily, hotel for Wikipedia, then you've got Orbitz, Travelocity, and Kayak kind of filling it out. But you look at it and go, I got to think, okay, TripAdvisor's up there, hotels.com, but whatever Omni's doing, whatever Starwood's doing, and whatever the heck this hotel in Sicily are doing, even though it's totally irrelevant, that's either an error by Google or they're doing something, you know, pretty interesting. But then if you go in anonymously, I thought the most interesting one was you got almost all OTAs, started again in hotels.com, then TripAdvisor, but then number 3, IrvingTexas.com hotels, which is the CVB, which I still think is the absolutely least utilized, resource for these hotels and these destinations. Because I look at it, why shouldn't that be the authority? If I want a hotel in there, that should be like number one.
No, that's been a contention for a long time. It's like, why aren't the CVBs and the T's? They lost their mojo years ago when they were trying so hard to become a channel for the hotels that that the hotels had to pay to participate in the distribution of the sites, so that the hotels went elsewhere and the CVBs, TDCs were left on their own for relevancy. And since they really weren't the final mile, they were only the intro, higher in the funnel thing, they just lost and lost and lost because the OTAs crushed them. Local the portal places that were for pay for hire stuff crushed them, and they ended up being this backwater content piece that got tax funding, and that was it. And then the tax funding didn't really cover their development costs, so they never really expanded past it. I remember dealing with, I mean, now they've come around a little bit better and better. They've gotten smarter or learned their lessons, like Palm Beach CVB got better. Miami was always a poster child of successful CVB development. Fort Lauderdale got smarter. Fernando Harb over there did a great job. Orlando got smarter. The Keys were great. I mean, I know I'm talking about all Florida stuff because those are the ones I was more intimately knowledgeable about.
Sure.
Bradenton, Sarasota got smarter. Naples got dumb. They squandered a lot of their opportunities away because they didn't do much stuff. They were just there. But there was a whole, I think, evolution of process for the CVBs that got lost. I don't know, 6-7 years ago.
Yeah, and let me just rail on Irving. I mean, this is not to pick on them, but they just happen to be on my screen right now. Okay, so they've got a nice picture of the Nilo, which is kind of a cool, funky hotel. I actually really like the Nilo. It's kind of in a bizarre location. I'm not sure how that deal got done, but I'm sure the businesses around in this office park just love having that place nearby. But you look down and it goes, okay, it has default for hotels and it has check-in, check-out rooms, adults, kids, you know, with a book now button that you can click. And it also has an 800 number you can call. So that's, you know, good for the CVB to do that. And they've got these little categories, regions, keywords, but then they've got a list of hotels, and it's not, they haven't done anything for date sensitivity. They have no pricing. So number 1 is the Jefferson Street Bed and Breakfast Inn. And it's like, it's got an address, and, you know, they do have a thing where you can open a map. It says visit website or no book now. But then you got all these others, America's Best Value Inn, Motel 6, Deluxe Inn. Half of them just have this little, what do you call it, a little bell when you come to the desk that you hit. That's it. They don't even have an image of the hotel at all.
And that's the thing, too. I think if you guys, what the OTAs do really well is they show differentiation.
Right.
Here they're being homogenous. Here's everything, blah, and you don't know what from one to the other, and they don't even participate enough for you to even understand the difference. It's just a data force that was shoved into a file.
But worse yet, they've got pre-population on their little search form of arrival on the 7th, departure on the 10th, right? And so that's, you know, okay, maybe those happen to be the date. Maybe they use some intelligence to say this is when we're going.
That was just 3-day roll.
Who knows, right? Yeah. But anyway, if I do that and I click the book now for the search, I just the adults, I push it, it comes back with a search thing that has the dates blank. It doesn't trigger a search, and you're like, who the hell designed this site? It makes, you know, that you're punishing people for kind of searching for something. I mean, if you do that and now you got to go search again, it's like, forget it. I'm not gonna do that.
Checked the box and said, because you had one developer that had a 3-day cycle for date drop. That's a function within the script code. I do those too. It's like what is considered optimal window of date stay? 2.5 days, or do we do a 3-day stay as a date stop? Mm-hmm. And then you're supposed to, good coding takes the data field data and puts it into the new script coding when you open up the next window. So at least if those dates weren't changed, or if they were changed, whatever those date changes were, get moved into the new script code. But No, they didn't do that because one developer didn't talk to another, or the person that hired the second developer had no clue to even ask. So it was never done.
Well, but then to even rail on them more, so then if you do it twice, if you search twice and put in the dates, even if they're the same dates, you get a list of hotels, and they've got their featured picks, right? Just like the OTAs do. I'm not sure which booking engine they use. I'll have to go dig into that. But number one, Holiday Inn Express and Suites, Dallas-Fort Worth Airport South, $102 a night. It's got 4 TripAdvisor circles, which is pretty good. You go, okay. But what's right underneath it? Aloft Las Colinas. It also has 4 TripAdvisor, circles on twice as many reviews, and it's $94 a night. So you've got a cheaper hotel with equal reviews, and I would say an Aloft would probably rate higher as a Holiday Inn Express in terms of a brand level and things like that. And you look and go, why would that sort order be like that? It just doesn't make any. Yeah,
they randomize if the people paid for it to be higher placement, they're just cycling through.
Oh yeah, maybe, and it's probably Holiday Inn's paying for to get boost up the rate. But again, it doesn't say sponsored, which I'm a big advocate of. If somebody's paying for position on that stuff, then say it's sponsored, right? If that's the key. But but it's interesting. Yeah, but you can go look at whatever, you go sort up by
that's
price
the
and does everything.
This type of stuff is that how these things don't work functionally and that how they should work functionally. And it's like you just wonder why there's such everybody in the people that you're talking about from the Irving Center and so forth get paid great salaries in comparison probably to what and they're supposed to be responsible for the advancement and improvement of the Irving business community. And yet the fall down is when you're actually talking about engagement from a customer perspective or potential guest perspective, you have so many breakpoints of inconsistency and such bad playing out. But everybody, hey, when we sit around a round table, hey, we got a website. Hey, you can book hotels on that website, and we can pay for feature spots. But the reality of it is it's dysfunctional and it's counterproductive, and there's no value to it except for the money you're pumping into it. So
well, and I'll tell us. Story. I won't name the CVB, but this was back a long time ago. This was in the mid 90s. We're doing some work. This is when we represented independent hotels. We represented we got up to 600, but that time we were probably about 200 properties. But then we started doing some work with some CVBs, which was great. We're doing marketing for them, all sorts of stuff. And so one of them, again, they were getting sales tax revenue, a chunk of the sales tax revenue of what was going on in the city, or the hotel revenue, I should say, the hotel room tax revenue. And they had to spend it or they lost it. And these guys were running events in New York City, like press events, to go talk about their city. And they would find a great hotel on Central Park South, they'd be at the Ritz-Carlton or something like that. They would invite all the press and that sort of thing. So we kind of got involved when they were doing this. Like, really? You're doing a press event in New York in June? Wow. We go, nobody showed up. 0. And I mean, guarantees to the hotel, all this, tens of thousands of dollars, and 0 impact because the city wasn't like a top destination. It wasn't Orlando. It wasn't LA. It was just kind of a garden. It wasn't even like a major city, right? And you just looked and went, oh dear, they are just setting, and they were not, oh yeah, we did one before and nobody showed up. But we think inviting them, and people had things that they had to go to and they couldn't make it on the day because they had conflicts. Like, no, they were just too nice to tell you that you were completely irrelevant. And they had no interest in what you were. They were just being polite, sort of thing. But that still happens with a lot of these guys where they spend money on things and they work on it, but there isn't the regimen of testing and seeing what works and is it producing, and that whole accountability, which again happens sometimes when hotel websites are built. The owners don't know what's going on. They just trust, Benji and his cousin who's going to go put this thing together, who's really good at this stuff. And
and they get paid probably more than they should have. Hey, you know what? I am going to take advantage of the fact that we can wrap it up at a reasonable time.
Early.
Because I have to continue to pack. Like I said, we're putting the house on. It's actually got the official listing date was today. It goes on show tomorrow. and we are hitting the road early in the morning. Drive down to Florida with a trailer load of stuff, and I still got some stuff to put in the trailer. So this works out well. I'll make my wife happy, which is always meaning that I am going to be happy if my wife is happy.
So now. Do you have the place staged, or is it going to be empty with all
Mostly
furniture,
empty.
or how?
Mostly empty. The rooms that still have stuff will be staged minorly. But pretty much everything's off the walls. Everything's off. It's pretty much mostly empty, which is nicer. They can picture their own stuff in it. So, but Mr. Robert, hey, again, thank you. And sincerely, I think you were my first co-host that we kept going and going and going. I don't know what episode we started, but it was in the
I
single
think it had to be.
best.
I think it had to be somewhere in the 90s. No?
Yeah, it might have been.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if it was single digits, but it was, I don't know. Maybe.
It was pretty close if it wasn't.
It was pretty early.
It wasn't. I think I started in August 2 years ago, and I know that I probably have something at least in October.
I think it was probably maybe September or October. Yeah.
Yeah, so it wasn't that far off from being in the single digits if it was. So I can't thank you enough for 2 years of taking the time. And we had it originally on Wednesdays. We moved it to Fridays.
That's right. Oh, that's right. Yeah. Well, you were the pioneer, and I was just the guy repairing the wagons.
The spokes in the wheel were still working. Yeah, but no,
exactly.
It's been fun. It's been fun, and now we have an entourage of people, and we have some really cool co-hosts and stuff. And Jonathan got reached out. Jonathan Stone, if he's listening to us or not, he reached out. He had a knee problem. And for those who didn't know, we were supposed to have Jonathan last week, and he tore his meniscus in his knee. He's up for surgery on the 13th, and he had reached out after he probably took some meds, which I would after tearing my meniscus, to say that he'll be back, try to be back in August sometime. So I'm asking for which date he finds in particular. So we should have him back in August for a discussion with him and Newscred.
That would be great. And Stuart, I didn't get an update on what's happened with his foot. So he came on the show with an injured foot, however, though, to really show the dedication. So
that's it. Yes.
We now know he will prioritize his personal health and well-being, over bones sticking out the top of his foot, but he was still on the show. And but clients apparently are more important to Stuart than his personal health.
I just don't. Where does that come from? Clients more important than this show? That just baffles me. I don't understand. But anyway, Mr. Robert, if people want
family vacation, what? Come on,
a cruise ship. I mean,
he sees those people. He sees those people every day. We only see us once a week.
Yeah. And the internet on those boats is so cheap. Why wouldn't he want to spend 2 hours on broadband off of the cruise boat talking with us? Yeah. I don't understand.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, some internet cafe on a whatever island, which I've been to many of them. Yes.
He might have to leave a couple of his children behind on the boat. He needs to for 2 hours off of that as a payment process.
Or perhaps it's just his wife slapping his phone out of his hands.
Mr. Robert, if people want to find you and what it is that you do and so forth, where do they find all about Robert?
At Robert K. Cole on social media or rockcheetah.com. A website that's been around for almost 18 years. So
I can't say that. I think, like I said, none of my personal websites are that far back. I've had websites, Save on Florida Travel and so forth, and stuff back in the old ones, but not anything that's been personally running for me for all that long. So congratulations for durability.
No. Oh, I beat Tim. Holy cow. 1990, April 12th, 1997.
Now, wait a minute. Is that hosted or just purchased?
No, I had something live.
What? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, well, no. Let me see. Let me try. Hang on. Was it that early?
Bragging rights here.
I got it in 1996. No, it was 97. I'm not sure.
Well, the register came online in 95, so nobody can go farther back than 95.
No, but I had. Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah,
well,
I'll have to go.
I'll have to make sure
to see. Yeah, to see.
So for show number 101, it's Showdown 101. Okay, Mr. Robert's going to bring to Mr. Peter, who really is first. The long duration.
Oh, that's what we should do. We should say, what date were you on Twitter? What day? So we can see who is the most painfully early adopter.
But you know what it is? We know we can beat Tim on the TC Peter thing for Twitter because he would have had Tim Peter or something. Because we have Lauren Gray, you have Robert K. Cole. We know how early we were.
Well, I didn't have Robert Cole. I couldn't get Robert Cole, but Robert K. Cole, was available.
Well, now I'm in competition with a 16-year-old music producing girl that
on Facebook or on
Twitter. Yeah. So that
you're going to lose that battle.
I'm losing it badly. All right. Well, Mr. Robert, thank you. For anybody that wants to get the playback of this episode, show notes, and so forth, you can always go to hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com/live. For this particular show, the posting will be hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com/live show/100 for show number 100. And Mr. Robert, again, a sincere and genuine thank you so very much for literally 2 years of weekly conversation. I think I've saved so much therapy bills.
You should not add those hours together.
Well, I know I stored all of the ones right now, and you got to figure that our average show is about 2 hours usually.
Yeah.
And we've done 100 shows of these. So 200 hours, how much does that get us in daily currency there? That's 8 days worth of.
Hey Google, how many days is 200 hours? I have a Google Home now. 8 1/3 days
of nonstop chitty chat.
Yeah.
It's on the channel.
Yeah, actually just one little thing in closing. The Google Home, my wife is actually using and liking. So that's
my wife too. I have the Google Home too, and it's connected to my security system and lights, so I can actually tell it to turn lights on.
Oh, we haven't taken that yet, and I don't have it hooked up to the whole, cast to the TV and stuff like cast to the TV. That'll be.
I'm just waiting for someday coming home and go to put the key in, it doesn't lock, and I hear, "What are you doing, Lauren?"
Yeah.
Let me in, Google.
Shared shopping lists between my daughter, my wife, and I. I mean, and you can see when it's checked off of who's they already got something pretty powerful.
And what's my day like and everything else? Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, anyway. Well, thank you again, Mr. Robert, as always. And for everyone else, again, hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com for all of our previous episodes, as well as podcasts, as well as the live shows and everything else, our Monday Marketing Minutes, and all the other kind of good stuff. And for everyone that has paid attention to us and listened to any of our 100 shows, thank you so much for having done so. We hope that we give you great content in the next 100 that we do as well.
And Lauren will take a $10,000 deduction on the price of his home for any listeners of the show. Use the coupon code
HDM 1000.
Yeah, exactly. Oh no, HDM 100. Yeah, for the show.
100. There it is, HDM 100. All right. Yep. With that, thank you so much, Mr. Robert. We're going to kick off, and we'll talk to you next week for 101. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.